are some of the biggest sagas, if you will. I mean, Alexander Isak by far was the biggest, and it is resolved. Now he is leaving Newcastle. He's getting that move to Liverpool for a British record, $176 million transfer fee. Ademola Lookman is not so much. It seems like he's going to be stuck and staying at Atalanta. Yoann Wissa pushed his way out. He is now moving into that space that Isak vacated at Newcastle. Marseille had that dust up with Rowe and Rabiot, sent them both packing. And now Donnarumma now is going to be playing for Manchester City, not by his own volition. Lucas Chevalier came in. Luis Enrique wanted him there. So Donnarumma now will be playing for Pep and City. All right, let's get into some of these conversations, because Isak's situation was fascinating, because it wasn't until really the beginning of August that this started to come up, or late July, that this move and this discussion of him being moving out came up, and he eventually found his way out. We see it in American sports all the time. The NBA guys are 3 or 4 years left in their deal. Deuces. Like, we are just finding their way out. So are we moving to a space, do you think, Nico, where we're going to see this in European football, where these guys are wielding a lot of power? Because he had 3 years left on his deal.
Yeah, I think we are. But in this case specifically, I think both parties acted in bad faith. Newcastle reportedly, right, had told Isak that, yeah, sure, if the right offer comes, we'll envision you beyond this club. And Liverpool were kind of knocking on the door for the entire transfer window with that type of offer, and they wanted him to stay. And then I do feel like Isak put himself in a hostage situation purposely to really force this move. I think Newcastle also, on their half, thought that they could compete with the likes of Liverpool, Chelsea, Manchester City. And really, at this point, they're not. And they ended up dragging this saga so far deep into the window that they had to kind of scramble to put their team together to make it competitive in the event that they lost Isak. So I think it's, I was going to say a lose-lose situation, but in the end, Isak got what he wants. And yes, I think this is a shift in momentum. Perhaps this window shows you that there is a junction point in how much power the players hold.
Can I just be honest? Sports is a business. It's a business. It's about maximizing your window. You just alluded to something about the NBA players. I seem to remember a franchise that's not too far from here, Philadelphia 76ers, having to deal with 2 players of the same issue, James Harden and Ben Simmons, both dealing with their contract disputes. And then what ended up happening? One goes and then projects his career and goes to another level, and the other one goes for his demise. That's the simple way of it. And all players recognise that. I've only got a small window to really recognise how good I can be. Alexander Isak would have been behind closed doors having that handshake and an agreement from a long time ago. So he's looking at that this is bad faith. And Nico just alluded to it. Bad faith is the word that we need to be recognising in the summer of this sports. I just saw it with Dallas Cowboys, right? Yeah. Bad faith, right? Yeah. Bad faith. Yikes. So at the end of the day, players have to turn around and look after their interests. And while Isak is here, he's thinking, well, I could stay at Newcastle, but look how long it's taken them to win 1 trophy in their history. Why should I stick around? And
I've learned, if one thing that we've learned from this transfer window, because before back in the day, I'm talking like 15, 20 years ago, a gentleman's agreement was a gentleman's agreement, right? That doesn't exist whatsoever at all. This window, I saw a player who was told by the club, we don't want you anymore, buddy. Get out of here. We'll loan you out. Go to Bayern Munich. And then at your convenience, once your player is injured and you have, despite that, a bunch of guys rotating through the door, Chelsea goes, oh, no. Now it's convenient to us. You know what? Come back when you're already in Bayern. Like, the gentleman's agreement does not exist anymore, and I think that's where the power shift is. I'm going to act, if you're going to act on your own self-interest and your business, then I'm going to do the same thing with me and my career.
And that's why it's difficult to get upset at the players for doing this. They are the assets. They have the value, and they know that. And you're seeing it now. It's, like you said, it's been happening in American sports for some time now. We just saw it in the NFL. It's been happening in the NBA for probably over a decade at this point. And in football, it's no different. It's difficult to blame a player for wanting the best move for his career when ownership is going to do whatever they feel is best for their club and for their pockets. So I do think that it's difficult to get upset at a player for just trying to find his way out. You can say, okay, you have to honor your contract. But they can terminate your contract. As we just saw, we're talking about players getting their contracts terminated over in Italy as well. It can happen anywhere. So it's difficult for me to get upset at a player for just wanting to make the best move for their career, what they believe it is.
Negotiations get drawn out into a saga for so long, and then when it works out, who remembers all of the drama? Who's talking about, by the way, how dramatic was the Mo Salah, Virgil van Dijk contract extensions? They were trending topic #1 week in, week out.
All season.
Now, who's talking about them now?
Yeah. Because they won't.
Nobody.
They won't. And there's never a win. No matter what anybody says, you're never going to please everybody because the fans are going to be upset or the club's going to be upset or the hierarchy or football's going to look at you. Look at the Trent situation. How many times has Real Madrid come knocking on your door in your career?
Right.
How many times? You might only get that once in your life. If you don't accept that opportunity, it might not ever come again. Alexander Isak could go, stay, I'll play another year at Newcastle, could completely dive in terms of form. Liverpool won't be knocking next season, and then Newcastle won't be honouring that agreement.
And maybe Newcastle won't even get a fee for as much as they're asking for.
They're still winning. They're still winning from a financial perspective with the incredible fee that they're getting for him. They'll be able to reinvest that into their squad over the next 2 seasons.
If they would have acted a little bit smarter, they would have had that 130 million pounds or whatever it was, that record-breaking fee earlier in the window to go spend it aptly to be able to compete in the Champions League instead of having a season like the last one where they couldn't put all of their eggs into different baskets in their Premier League season domestically, took a nosedive.
And scrambling. Exactly. It's just you're putting the responsibility on the players when really there's a whole board and a whole recruitment team that had enough information and enough time to put a proper squad and a proper plan together. You can't put it on the onus of a player.
And from Newcastle's perspective as well, like you mentioned before, they thought they were going to be able to compete with the Liverpools, with the Chelseas, with the Arsenals. They can't even compete with Manchester United. They lost out on Benjamin Sesko that way as well. So they severely kind of did not exactly expect it to go this way. They thought they were at that level because they were Champions League. When you have players choosing Manchester United over them who don't have European football. So I think they really kind of miscalculated how this would go for them.
They did get 2 players that are pretty good, though. They got Wisa, who's proven in that league, and Nick Voltemade, who's a desirable asset. So we'll see. They reinvested the money already. See if they're any good.
Look at that money, you know.
It's a lot of money.
Your arm is kind of forced into a desperate situation to spend a lot of money for players that Voltemade is unproven in the Prem. Sure, Visa I think is a pretty good signing, but
only because you made the comparison. I've told you, and I said it on this set before, and I'll say it again. The Newcastle United fans and the New York Knicks fans live in the same room.
Oh, God.
They live in the same room.
That's not where you want to be.
I say it again.
Nico Jackson is now part of Bayern Munich. Now, this was a dramatic situation. He flew on August 30th, Saturday, to Munich to finish that deal. That same day, that morning, our time, Fulham and Liam Delap gets hurt against Fulham. That loan deal collapses. Chelsea wants him back. They get Marc Guehi, the guy they had on loan in Sunderland. They call him back to try to be a replacement. All this stuff happens, but we've now landed. Nico Jackson is going. He's playing for Bayern Munich on a $19 million loan fee with an option to buy of $95 million for the Bavarians. All right, let's bring it back into the studio here. Stefano, Jaydee, Nico, and Dalen. Stefano, I'll start with you here. The situation now is finalized for both the club, let's say both clubs, Chelsea, Bayern, and Nico. Is this a good deal for everybody? Like, where do you net out on this?
I mean, it was a drama, right? A huge saga for this player and for Chelsea and for Bayern Munich. It is interesting how it all played out. I do think it is a positive move specifically for Bayern Munich. In my opinion, they needed depth. They are obviously the cleared away favorites for the Bundesliga, but their targets are Champions League this year. Their targets are to go and win the Champions League. And with the current squad that they have, I don't think they had enough depth. They didn't have anybody behind really Harry Kane that was a serviceable striker. They're going to need that with the amount of games that they play. And for Nico Jackson, it's an opportunity. He clearly was phased out at Chelsea, had his opportunities there all season last year. And if he wasn't going to get any playing time, he needs to go somewhere to play. If Bayern Munich is that spot, I don't know how many minutes he'll get. I don't think I think the party that wins more on this side is Bayern Munich for this deal, in my opinion, not so much Nico Jackson. He will get some playing time, but maybe not as much as he would have liked if he would have stayed in the Premier League or gone to a smaller club.
I mean, it's up to Nico Jackson. If you want to sit on the bench in Bavaria or if you want to sit on the bench in Kensington, it's just really up to you. But you're not starting at either place, so you might as well start somewhere that's a little bit warmer. And I heard the weather's a little bit better in Germany. So he's not going to replace Harry Kane. That's fundamentally because Harry Kane is probably the most informed striker across Europe. The consistency he's shown in a Bayern Munich jersey, I'm flabbergasted how he's still doing it at 32. But it doesn't shock me when you're world class. At the end of the day, Nico Jackson's probably looking long term. You see in the 5 years in terms of in the contract negotiation is if it does turn into a permanent deal later on down the line. So he's probably thinking to himself, look, probably not right now Bayern Munich's number 9, but if I stay in the mix and if I do what I've done in Chelsea and show glimpses of what I can do, probably little cameos here and there. Hopefully, Nico doesn't agree with me though. Is this Nico or Nico Cram? What's wrong?
No, yeah. What's the option? I know you guys are very happy for Bayern Munich and for Nico Jackson. What's the option that Bayern has on Nico Jackson?
$95 million.
How much?
$95 million.
That's crazy.
I'm just telling you, he was stuck in between a rock and a hard place. Where was he going to go?
You offload Nico Jackson for a potential $95 million when you bought him for 37 million euros, and he wasn't even good? That's a win for Chelsea in my book. Are you kidding me? This is extraordinary for both parties. I can't believe Bayern is actually entertaining this, seeing his track record at Chelsea. I'm thinking of the Nico Jackson that played at Villarreal and was actually decent, right? That's the Nico Jackson that you want. I don't know if you can get that Nico Jackson if you're constantly riding on the bench, waiting for those seldom minutes when either Harry Kane is potentially injured or rested. It's going to be difficult for him to break through. I mean, he's obviously not going to break through a starting 11, but I don't know. They needed depth. This is a good piece. I can't believe what the loan fee within itself is like 22 million euros. You're already basically dropping down the price point to a 10 million euro difference to what you paid for him. So I think all parties walk away from this happy. I think Chelsea almost did him dirty in the end, but everybody ended up getting what they wanted. Bayern Munich ended up getting their player. Nico Jackson ended up getting away from Chelsea, and Chelsea ended up making a couple of million euros off of a player that wasn't even delivering for them.
Let's get into that, because a couple years ago, when Clearlake took over and Todd Burley's making his PR rounds, everybody was panning their decisions and how they were buying these players, young players, 7-8 years deals, amortization, all this stuff. Their business now looks like it's pretty good, that they're doing a lot of activity, but they seem like they're making money on young players and willing to ship them right back out if you're buying them. Where do you stand on Chelsea's business approach, which is different than most teams?
The purist in me hates it. I'm not going to lie to you. It irks me. And if I was a young player, I'm asking myself, why do I want to join the conveyor belt? I thought football was about getting minutes. It's not just about capitalising on money or opportunities in front of me, because they have so many players. They could fill a football team. I'm not talking about our football. I'm talking about an NFL team. That's how silly it's becoming.
54
now.
On that roster,
That's
folks.
how silly it's becoming now.
It's a perversion of excess.
It's just disgusting. It's disgusting because you're utilising the rules and you're utilising ambition of young players and using it against them. Football at this year, that age group between 20 and 24 is about when you're really homing in your skills. That's when you're really developing who you want to become as a player. And you're wasting it either on loan or trying to work out if I'm a first-team player or even becoming a first-team player like Nico Jackson and then getting sold out. Why sign a contract till 2033 if you're not even going to see out more than the majority of it? It doesn't make any sense.
So from the purist in you, I go to the purist in me, and I see them spending all of this money for a player that doesn't even work out, and they just go, on to the next, because they have, like you say, a conveyor belt. And I'm thinking of clubs like a Crystal Palace, for example. If they spend that type of money and that player doesn't hit, it could ruin the club, And that's where we're at, the disparity within the Premier League, within some teams that have seemingly endless pockets and are trying to find the loophole around the system of giving these players 10-year contracts. And if one doesn't work out, sure, we can find a way out of there and make some money off of a transfer that didn't end up doing anything for us.
I think they just took it to an extreme level, because if we've been seeing this in football everywhere for years, where
not this model. This model is different.
MLB
but what you were saying, but what you were just saying, right, that the big clubs can afford to miss on a signing and just move on to the next signing because they can afford it. Some clubs can't do that. That's been happening for a long time. The purist football fans are not going to like the way that they do business. But in reality, you can't get mad at the club. These are the rules and how they're set up, and they're finding loopholes and ways around it. My biggest thing is they seem to buy players sometimes just to prevent their rifles from buying players, right? And they send them out on loan. Now this club cannot have them because they're out on loan and under our control. And I think that's more of what their model from a financial standpoint as well. But that's more, I think, where it sucks to see it like that, because you have good, solid players that want to play in the Premier League get bought by Chelsea, think they're going to have an opportunity, then sent on loan and really never get that chance.
You can do what you want in modern football, but you need to deliver the results. Chelsea finished top 4. They won the Conference League as they should have. They won the Club World Cup. That was amazing on their behalf. And now that's the standard that they've set with this billion-dollar team. You got to follow up this season.
Marc Guehi, the England international center back for Crystal Palace. We all thought he was going to Liverpool. Here's David Ornstein's latest tweet. Crystal Palace, despite deal sheet submitted for transfer to Liverpool, 25-year-old did the medical for LFC. An agreement reached between the clubs at $35 million with the center back on a 5-year contract, but Palace could not find a replacement. That is the story they're rolling with right now, why Guehi is not going to be moving to Liverpool. I was asked the guys how they're feeling, but in the break, I think we already figured it out. I had just, they popped it up, and then here we go. So that's the visual, boys. Would you like to put some words as Jaydee starts to smack his hand out on the table? Well, why did you react like that? Stefano, clearly you're following it up.
Because we can sit here and we as analysts and as fans and we ridicule players. All summer I've been hearing the ridicule of players. Oh, who is he to turn around and push himself out of a club? Does he think he's bigger than the momentum? Does he think he's bigger than his football club? He's not bigger than anything. I've heard that all summer from a number of different players, from Trent all the way down. And then you have someone who's done the job the right way, has honoured the club all the way through, has given you arguably your biggest moment as a football club. In terms
he played yesterday too,
and scored a goal.
Yeah.
And you can see it was a crescendo moment for him. The way he celebrated with the fans to say goodbye. He's done it in an honourable way. Done the pre-season, no grumbles. And I know Marc. He's an ultimate professional. And to see that move is taken away from him for whatever reason, when you've had the whole summer to work out a replacement, is nothing short of just shambolic. Like, why? Why would you derail a player from an opportunity to elevate themselves because you can't be bothered to go and look for something correct?
And if I'm Marc Guehi, why would I ever now sign a contract extension?
No. Yeah.
So you're about to lose him for free
And now you're going to lose him for free next summer because
if I'm going to walk on a free in a year, and now I'm staying with the club because the club itself couldn't figure out how to find a replacement for me. They were willing to let me go.
You let me travel to Merseyside.
The transfer sheet was in, but because you couldn't find a replacement for me, now I have to suffer the consequences of your poor administration when I handled everything to the utmost professional manner?
It's poor, man.
Moral of the story, I mean, it appears, right, that making a fuss and being unprofessional and staying home, refusing to train, refusing to play, it gets you the move.
It does.
And being nice guy might not get you the move. And that's what now it becomes even more of a conversation that we were having last segment, where these players have the power to force their moves and do it. And you see why. Because if they just go about it and let the clubs handle it, they can get screwed in the end. And Marc Guehi now that's happening to him. Liverpool obviously left without their center back, but more importantly, the player was hitting his dream move and was an absolute just completely class about the entire situation, and he still gets messed up here in the end.
The last 24 hours, in his mind, he said goodbye to Crystal Palace fans properly. He scored a goodbye goal. He probably woke up this morning thinking about the Champions League theme music after coming back from international duty, and that's all been taken away from him because a recruitment department couldn't be bothered to find a replacement in the right time.
In an ideal world, yes, but I would imagine if you're a player, you're not thinking about those things until you sign the contract and the transfer is thinking about. You're probably pushing it, but you're not dreaming of yourself playing in Champions League football. Like, you got to get the contract some deal delivered before you start dreaming about those things. Knowing how these things happen. Yeah, but the transfer wasn't done.
I wouldn't be surprised if it's already
you're probably pushing for it.
He's in the WhatsApp group. He's looking at real estate.
I understand the sentiment with the comment that you're saying where you want to go, because he's probably willing for this to get done, to get over the line. It was out of his hands at the end of the day, right? Because he did absolutely everything he could do for it to happen. But knowing how modern football is and knowing how dramatic the transfer window is, why would you put high hopes in your head before anything is official?
Nico,
right?
we're human, because we're all going to think about what's next.
Like, we're excited. If you're doing a medical, you're at the facility.
Right,
you're walking around. You were on Zillow. You were looking at stuff.
He already had a Liverpool tab open on Zillow.
It's not official until it's signed, sealed, deliver, and it wasn't. And you can't get your hopes up until you have the contract. Until everything was in the balance until the very last moment. Nico. And he's a professional, and he knows that, and he knows the situation that the club putting in. And they're sending all of those feelings that went through his head, the optimism, the hope of potentially perhaps playing in Champions League. He's going to remember that if the club ever comes any feet within his vicinity to say, do you mind signing a contract extension so we can make some money off of you? In that sense, yes. But it's such a shame for the player.
I mean, we all work in a business where if our agent tells us this is probably going to happen and you think it's going to happen, you start thinking it's going to happen. But
I don't think anything has happened. I think it's foolish to think anything is going to happen.
Guess what?
Until you
I'm an idiot. All right, I'm a fool.
Contract in your head. Until you have the contract in your head. Bro, this is business. This isn't Disneyland.
All right, Nico, for a second, you telling me you wouldn't start picturing it?
Not until
a medical. The 5 years
that's not a final contract signed, sealed, delivered. The transfer is through. I know how this window works. It's not my first rodeo.
He's got
and now it's probably not Marc Guehi's either.
Around Anfield.
He probably got multiple, but he didn't put a Liverpool jersey on yet.
All right. Let me just advance this conversation a little bit because you alluded to it. The defensive issues, minus yesterday, they were great against Arsenal. They defended well, and Arsenal, you can talk about how they attacked, whatever. They defended well, much better than we've seen Liverpool defend. But the concerns were they need to reinforce defensively. They do not have that now. Yep. How much of a concern is this is that space now?
That is the biggest concern now for Liverpool. From an attacking standpoint, I don't think that there's much to worry about. Maybe just how they mesh and play and decide who gets onto the pitch and in what formation they play. They're playing a different formation because of some of those signings. And now only 2 in the midfield. They get overrun. It's happened in the first few games quite a bit. And they don't have that depth on that back line to be able to truly say, okay, we feel comfortable defensively in the Champions League, in the Premier League, and in all competitions that Liverpool will be in the summer. That is going to be the storyline now following Liverpool throughout, at least until January. If they decide in January, maybe go back in to try to get someone to fill that gap as far as depth on that back line. But this will be the storyline now for Liverpool, is how they're going to deal with defensive issues and how they're going to deal with the balance on the pitch moving defensively.
They're going after a defender in the winter transfer window.
100%.
Without a doubt. I don't know if that's Marc Guehi.
And also, Canate, you mentioned Canate played much better. He also has a big injury history as well.
True.
So it's not just from a form perspective with Canate. It's also injury. He has had injuries throughout his entire Liverpool career. So that's the other thing to look at. Who replaces him?
And that's exactly what I was going to allude to, what Steph just said. It's not so much Canate's ability, it's more his availability. Right. Can he be consistent over 50 games? It's going to be a lot of pressure and constraint on that Liverpool team this year. They're going to have to travel a lot. They're going to have to do things this year that they didn't have to do last year because there's a target on their back now. And now there's one person who has to step up. It's Joe Gomez.
Yeah.
Joe Gomez is going to be given a lot of opportunities. You've seen Jarell Quansah already leave from that squad. Joe Gomez now is definitively either the third choice or even probably looking at saying, I'm going to play a lot of games starting now in that Liverpool team.